Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the major astrological transits for September 2025. September. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. Anyways, at the beginning of the week ahead forecast, I said that I would announce something on September 1st that I specifically wanted to wait till September 1st. I felt like if I said it too soon, then people would be like, hey, wait. And yeah, anyways, for the entire month of September, I'm running a special on my one-on-one sessions. Now, you go to the website www.thespirituallyboujee.com. You get this little place right here, thespirituallyboujee.com. Go to the little triple bar, go to astrological services, Eclipse season special one-on-one coaching sessions. If you click this, you're going to see that the 60-minute sessions have been reduced to $35. The 90-minute sessions have been reduced to $50. I have done this special before. It's not a big thing. However, unlike the last time what I did at the beginning of the Mercury retrograde, where I only ran the special for like 2 weeks, I did it more of like a flash sale because I didn't plan on doing it, but my intuition said, hey, babe, you should probably do this. I'm doing it for the entire month of September. Now, this will be the last full monthly special that I will do this year. And that's the bigger part of the announcement. I might do some little flash sale around Black Friday or around Halloween or something like that. I have not decided yet. The real world effect of everything has not shown itself to the point that I'm willing to make that decision right now. But I don't feel like I can make a commitment of an entire month whenever it comes to the last quarter of the year, October, November, and December. So again, the eclipse season special that I'll be running all of September will be the last full monthly special that I will run this year. So if you're wanting to book and you're thinking, oh, well, I'll just get with her in November, I will get with her in December, I'll do it whenever you want to do that. Take advantage of the pricing now, even if you don't want to meet until later. Because somebody's gonna get salty and you're gonna have the nerve to complain to me like, but you're so busy. That's the point. It's the weirdest thing to hear people complain to me about. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I've been hustling for years. I've been doing this for a lot of people for a long time. The point is to be busy, but I also like to be affordable. So whenever I can, I like to run these specials. So again, the Eclipse season special is active. You can go to the website and book. There's that. Number two, I have had multiple invitations to come back to Arkansas. I've had events for Chicago. I've had events sent to me for Vegas. I've had events sent to me for Florida. I've had events sent to me for all of these areas. And I got to be honest with you guys, intuitively at the beginning of the year, when I started to commit to doing these events and going to the other states and going to Oklahoma City, doing big events here locally, I knew, I knew intuitively at the beginning of the year, I could only do events until about the end of the summer. And then I actively have known that once Mars went into Libra, which we've been in for like a month now, once Mars went into Libra, my ability to leave, to go do other things, to go to other places would be done. I knew it. Now I have seen the real world, real life effect as to why that transit was telling me that. And I'm already just going to say it this way. I cannot see myself committing to any long distance travel for quite some time. At minimum, the end of the year. It might even be through the spring of next year. I don't know yet. So I'm putting my focus into more doing some local things. I've already been working with the local business known as Energetic. I've been hosting like Tarot Tuesdays and Witchy Wednesdays at some local establishments, and I am growing that actually. I'm actually adding more dates into that. And of course, I've got a lot of bookings going into Halloween because everybody wants the authentic witchy bitch at their party. That's great. Great, great. So I'm booking events on my local side, not so much the travel side. So for those that were coming out or sending me the stuff, I sincerely appreciate it. I'm sorry I cannot make it, but at this time, that's what's best for my home life and my family dynamic here. So it is what it is. Oh, still send me stuff. you never know what's going to pop up or what changes, because I've had last minute things where I've been able to squeeze something out on, but I can't see myself doing some big planned thing at this moment. And I'm just being real. Okay. Did I have any other nonsense? Yeah, that's it. That's it. Okay. I had to think about that. I've been so focused on meditating on the transits of this month that I, the biggest thing that I need people to understand is that September, in so many ways, is a huge transition. And I already started to hint at this at the end of August. And like, we have a bleeding of energy. We have a bleeding of like how we're fixing the old stuff, how we are expanding on the old stuff, how old stuff is finding its way, coming back around and recentering our focus. And so much of this month speaks to the layers and levels of exactly that, things coming back around without it being like a Mercury retrograde. So this tells me that whatever is coming back around, for a lot of people, it's karma. It's karma. And the biggest blame I have on that is good old Daddy Saturn and what he's doing, as well as Jupiter and Mars. And we're going to throw Neptune in there because Neptune's just Neptune. So these are the four, to use the four properly now. These are the four planets as to why I'm saying that. Now, at the start of the month, the very first thing we do, Saturn retrogrades back into Pisces and reactivates some things. Now, in the first week of the month, we also have our Pisces eclipse, and it also reactivates. Please note that I'm saying reactivates. And I even have it set up on the screen to actually show you guys. And that is, there's a lot of the prior to eclipses for this axis that are coming back around this month. Areas of the skies are being re-highlighted, but they're being re-highlighted with a different planet. Or they're being highlighted in the sense of like there's a switch going on. And whenever it comes to the vibration around the Pisces eclipse, the switch is very, very active. Now, the thing about eclipses is usually the pattern would be one sign has a new moon, the next sign has the full moon. And then in 6 months, this sign would have the full moon, this side would have the new moon. And then the next time, this side would go back to new moon, this side would go to full moon. And on the Virgo side, we've sort of had that. Back around March 13th, 14th, depends on your time zone, we had the full moon eclipse in Virgo. That was the first eclipse of the Virgo Pisces axis, with the nodes being in those axes. We had that Virgo eclipse then. This go around, we've had the 2 moons in Virgo. We just had the black moon at the end of August. By the time we get to the end of September, we'll have our actual new moon in Virgo eclipse. So we're going to get a double new moon situation. And then in the springtime, we will have our third and final Virgo full moon eclipse. So we're sort of in that pattern, but we got an extra new moon in there for extra emphasis of change. Yay, yay, yay. Okay. But on the Pisces side, this is not what we've had. It's not at all. Last September, we had what was called an out of sign eclipse in Pisces. Now, to have an eclipse, the sun has to be within 15 degrees of the node. North node, south node, doesn't really matter. It has to be within the 15-degree mark. It's not the moon, it's the sun. The sun has to be there. Well, last year, September, we had an out of sign eclipse in Pisces. The North Node, actually, I have it up on the screen. So let me just go ahead and show you that. The North Node was still in Aries. And the South Node was still in Libra. The center wheel right here, this is the eclipse from 2024. The outer wheel is the eclipse from 2025. And I kept feeling like Saturn going back into Pisces was really activating something. And then I went and compared the eclipses from then to now. And what I was noticing is not so much like where that eclipse was in 2024, September 17th of 2024. What I'm actually paying attention to is Saturn. Saturn at 15 degrees of Pisces. And this particular full moon eclipse that is full on North Node in Pisces, eclipse in Pisces, not an out of sign eclipse, is right where Saturn was last year. Right there. Right there. And that's really interesting to me. Now, I have a personal placement here. My moon is like roughly in this area of Pisces. So I was very much in tune with the downloads, like paying attention to it back in September of last year. I know there's going to be something else that comes up intuitively in some way with the eclipse this year. But there also reminds me of what we were talking about last year. And that is there's something was getting activated in September of 2024 that we're going to have change here. We're going to have gains here. We're going to have growth here. We're going to have perspective here. We're going to have something here. But you're not ready for it. And a lot of people, that was like the very big energy that I was picking up, even from clients afterwards. Like, we craved something. We craved an energy. We craved this need to heal something. We craved the ability to grow and expand in some way. There was something internally that got activated last year in that Pisces eclipse. And in some way, shape, or form, it's getting reactivated in this eclipse. But this is one of two eclipses that we're going to have this month. Basically, all of September is eclipse season. All of September will have elements of transition. By the end of the month, September 21st, we will have our second new moon in Virgo that is an actual eclipse. And it's going to take place at 29 degrees of Virgo. Now, anything that happens at the 29-degree mark instigates something needs to come to a completion. But I feel like, again, whatever happened in the black moon in Virgo, whatever got activated, whatever things kind of came to the surface, whatever overwhelmed our mind, whatever became a part of the attention, set the stage in motion for what needs to be completed, put together, leveled up into, going into the actual eclipse in Virgo, the second new moon. That again is going to happen on September 21st. Now, the second eclipse in Pisces, the second new moon in Virgo, the actual eclipse, blah, 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 blah. It is technically the second eclipse in Virgo, though, because we had one back in March, but I'm screwing up my words right now. It is actually in a full opposition to Saturn. So whether we're looking at the internalized vibration of the Pisces eclipse taking place where Saturn was in the sky last year, to the actual Virgo eclipse that will be in full opposition to Saturn, there's something about old emotions, deep-seated wounds, levels of healing that are being activated throughout this month. For other people, it is going to be a spiritual vibration, where your spiritual needs are taking you, where your guides are taking you. And there's lessons to be learned in this vibration. There's a series of lessons needing to come to light, needing to come into the forefront. Now, the thing about mutable signs is they are transitional signs. The mutable signs transition us from one season to the next. The first day of Libra season will be the first day of fall, but all of Virgo season is that mix of like, we got some hot, still summer weather. We're still vibing from some Leo stuff, but we're starting to get some of that cool weather. We're starting to see some of the leaves turn. We're starting to see the first little inklings of fall. But once we get into Libra season, the first day of Libra season is the first day of fall. There's a transition to something new beginning. And I've said this before, what we're going to see this month is a bleed of the old vibration impacting the new, feeding off of the new, carrying into the new. Sometimes you need your old contacts because that old contact gets you in with the new person. You didn't even realize you needed help getting in with them. But hey, girl, I know you used to work here. You totally used to work with this company, with this guy. How can I get an interview? Oh, I'll make a call for you. Oh, I can help. Old friend impacting the new. It's one example. For other people, you're going to have stuff going on with the elders. And I was clear about that from before. Going in those last 2 weeks of August, like we got some things around the elders that are really going to start to take shape. And I felt like that transition was going to be seen with that energy around Saturn going to the last degrees of Aries, well, earliest degrees of Aries, and then boom, going back into Pisces. That we were going to see something with the elders that needed to come through, but also seeing something transition around authority figures. And I think as we go into this month, going off of the idea of authority figures when it comes to Saturn, there's going to be an energy where authority figures can't explain their situation. They can't explain their beliefs. They can't explain the judgment. They can't explain certain things. And I feel like this is more collective because halfway through the month, like right in between the two eclipses, we're going to have an Antiscia, our second Antiscia between Saturn and Neptune. Now, please note I said it's the second one. We've had one of these before. It was back in early May when we were trying to come up for water from the energetic gauntlet waterfall plunge that we did. We were trying to come into the new, and it was very surreal. Parts of September will feel very surreal. Is this real? Is this happening? Is this true? Some, regardless of what you see in front of you, you won't necessarily want to believe it. Others, you will believe it, but it's like you're struggling to get other people to understand what's in front of them, how this can be real, how this can be true, how this is happening. Now, there's a multitude of ways of how that can come through in regards to that vibration with Saturn and Neptune, because they're still in less than 3 degrees away from each other. They're still technically in a conjunction range. But once Saturn re-enters Pisces and re-enters that Antiscia, there's something about the vibration of Neptune that almost overwhelms Saturn. Now, Saturn is in Neptune's sign. Neptune is in a fire sign. It's in Mars' sign, but it's in a fire sign. And I'm expecting inflated ideas, things of grandeur, literal inflation, by the way, in the markets. I've been watching the financial market like a hawk. Don't actually have anything in the financial market, but I'm watching it like a hawk because I keep looking at certain things. But I also feel like there can be the overwhelm of like being stuck in a reality that lies, fraud, and deception brought us into. Now, that can be in the big collective sense, but that can also be where we can be at karmically, because good old daddy Saturn rules karma. Rules karma. Now, I said in the beginning, I'm saying it again now. Some of the past things coming back around can be our karma. It can be the things that we are reaping in reward. That again feels surreal, adding layers to what I've already said. For other people, it is going to be this blindsiding issue of like, how did this come back up? How is this coming back around? How did this happen? Where did this even come from? And that level of vibration also starting to impact the now, the new, and where we're at. There's a vibration that speaks to the past coming back. And for some people, that is going to bite us in the ass. And it's going to suck. It's going to hurt. Because there's so many times that we think we got away with something, that we got it through, we squeezed it in, we said what we said. But then something comes back up going, hey, no, 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 not true, not right, not valid, not real. No, 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 no. There's a lot of things that speaks to layers of previous dynamics. And most specifically, I'm staying focused on just the last year. Now, if you have individual situations of things going back even further, I would not be surprised by that. But I'm strictly focused on like the repeat and the patterns of transits of the last year. But I got a few people personally that we've been watching, like the pattern that going back to like the mid 2000s, because there's a repeat with different vibration from there. And then I've got a couple people we're watching all the way back to like the 90s, because you're like completing certain karmic patterns that go back to like 94 to 98 time frame. And we're finally wrapping some things up. So there are larger patterns out there for certain people, but for the podcast, we're staying focused on the course of the last year, just to be clear. So if you're seeing something karmically coming back from a decade ago, 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, there might be personal reasons based off of how your chart is being activated as to why. But it is what it is. It depends on how close you're paying attention, how much you can pay attention, and how connected to your own vibration that you are. But there is a series of unfinished business that is starting to come to the forefront that requires healing, expansion of knowledge. For some of us, we will be teaching other people how to overcome, how to let go, how to work through certain things. Healing aspects in regards to not trying to control every single outcome. Some people are going to struggle with that. And there's a lot of this vibration that also speaks to what's going to be coming up in some ways later this year, some ways, like, and I'm saying later this year, like December, around Christmas. In other ways, how we start the beginning of 2026. And for us to understand what we will be doing in that startup, we have to go through transition. And so much of this month is the transition into what we'll be focusing on, into where we're going to be making changes, and then later on into what we will be debuting. And debuting is a very big word you're going to hear in January of 2026. But we're not there yet. Now, most of this month is about a transition. It's the bleed over, it's a transition to get us into a new territory. And I don't feel like everybody is going to be into new territory until the end of the month. I feel like a lot of people, you need the entire transitional energy of eclipse season to move you into something. But I think the transition will be felt so large that once we land in the new, it's almost like having a safety preserver. It's almost like being on the boat. It's almost like being on solid ground again. But the transition is just mind-blowing, time warping. It's almost like static trying to bring a picture together. And whenever you're going into something so unknown, it's going to bring up emotions. And now that Saturn is back in Pisces, there's going to be a lot of emotions. So let's be clear about that. When it comes to where we are at right now, we need the transition. We need this vibration to shift our focus into the layers of the new, while also bringing in the elements of the old. And I feel like the elements of the old, again, for a lot of people are karmic. For other people, it's timeliness of like, okay, I've given you a year to prepare, going from Pisces eclipse to Pisces eclipse now. I've given you a year to prepare for this energy to have gains, for this energy to have perspective, for this energy to have some kind of attention. And now it's time, because now Saturn's back in Pisces and Saturn also rules time. It's time for this to come to fruition, for this to become solidified, for this to become seen, for this to become known. And I want to be clear, the next Pisces eclipse will be an out of sign eclipse in August of 2026. Whatever is getting activated on the Pisces side is going to take an entire year to truly take shape. It is not just one thing. And whenever I do the Pisces eclipse episode later on, I will talk about that a little bit more in detail based off of signs. Okay. Okay. So much of that was intuitive because I already know it does not match my notes. All right, give me just a second. We're going to switch this over to the screen. All right, September 1st at 3:07 a.m. Central Standard Time. I got it now right here at 3:30. Saturn retrogrades back into Pisces. Saturn has re-entered this vibration where he will be until Valentine's Day. Just put it in your head. Saturn likes to mess with our holidays. He's entering on Labor Day, at least here in the Americas. Sorry. In the United States, he entered on Labor Day. He's going to be here till Valentine's Day. He's making us shift our focus. Now, he's going to be retrograde until roughly around November 28th, 29th. And I always feel like whenever a planet is retrograde, their vibration is a little bit more frustrating and it's a little bit more intense. It's a little bit more blindsiding. And again, it's bringing up old shit in so many ways. We're going to be in an unfinished business pattern basically until late November, early December, whether we're talking about like Saturn or Neptune in that energy. But we've got some unfinished business, things that got missed, things that we have tried to move away from, things that we have tried to forget about, out of sight, out of mind. There's something about the old coming back around. And it's going to be for a while. So you're just going to keep hearing me say the old and the new all throughout September. Because yay. Okay. On September 2nd, Mercury is going to move from Leo into Virgo. So Mercury is actually going to move into its home sign. And for a lot of people, this does feel like the arrival. It's the arrival of communication. It's the arrival of news. It's something being announced. It's something being, worked on or driven to. But there's something about specifically communication that's really taking shape. And now I want to bring up all throughout the first few days of September, we have this square between Jupiter and Mars building. It's not exact until the 4th, but they start to hit their 3-degree range on the 1st. We're in it on the 2nd. And the only reason I'm bringing this part up now is because Jupiter is in an area of the sky where Mars was back during the Virgo eclipse in March. He ended his retrograde very tightly to this area. It was actually at 17 degrees, but Jupiter's still right there. And it feels like some of the things that we did back in January and February, whenever we were just trying to like make the best of situations, have also in some way led to where we're at in this first full week of September. Now, as soon as Mercury goes into Virgo, again, this feels like an arrival. For some people, it's going to be very exciting. For other people, it's going to lead to something unexpected. I'm saying that because on the next day, Mercury is going to go through a square with Uranus. You can see this is on September 3rd. We still have this Mars-Jupiter square that's building, but I'm also looking at the fact that Uranus is hitting this square to Mercury. And this will be the last major transit to Uranus before Uranus turns retrograde. So some of this is going to be a repeat of the stuff that I've already said on like the week ahead forecast. Now, this is going to go more exact in the overnight hours around the 2:30 a.m. So some people are going to have a hard time sleeping in between like the late night of September 2nd and the early morning of September the 3rd. I think minds are going to be busy. I think there's going to be a lot of overactivity here, especially something about being productive, given the moon being in Capricorn. But I'm also looking at the moon is in Saturn's sign, and Saturn just retrograded back into Pisces. So some of the overactivity that can be going on right here, again, might have to do with our elders. Because the moon's placements can always give like emphasis as to like where our focus is going to be. So it really kind of depends on what Saturn rules for you in your chart, what Capricorn rules. Now, on September 4th, so I'm just going to bump this a day, this is where we get the actual Jupiter Mars square. It's not exact right here. It actually goes exact in the evening time, roughly around the 10:30 p.m. mark. And this is happening right before the Jupiter ruled Pisces eclipse. Back during the Virgo eclipse that happened in March, so March 13th, 14th, earlier this year, where Jupiter is right now in Cancer is where Mars was back then. So we have layers of like reactivating the same areas of the sky, but with a different planet. Jupiter is in the higher authority, and we're about to have our actual first eclipse for eclipse season in Jupiter's sign. But not only that, the other ruler of Pisces is Neptune, and Neptune is in Mars's sign. And this is why I'm putting more emphasis on Jupiter than I am Mars. Jupiter is in the higher authority. Jupiter is trying to fix, heal, or expand an area of the sky that Mars did damage months ago. We made decisions about doing stuff months ago. And now we're in this area of growth and expansion, given the Mars-Jupiter dynamic. But there's been a lot to their dynamic. And normally we would have like a Mars-Jupiter conjunction once every 2 years, but given the way the Mars retrograde hit, this is actually going to be a longer pattern for these two. It's like a 2.5-year pattern. And while Mars was retrograde, we had a bunch of those secret transits. So I talked a little bit already about like the Saturn-Neptune-ANTICIA that's going to be building in the middle of the month. But we had a set of contra-ANTICIAs back during the Mars retrograde. We actually had 3 between Mars and Jupiter. And they followed an actual conjunction that had happened in August. Later, going into the spring of 2026, there's going to be this like debuting vibration. So I'm already giving forewarning that of some things. And part of that debuting has to do with the Sun and Mars opposite Jupiter. Now, when Jupiter's in this higher authority to Mars, this is actually like a higher energy vibration. It's like pushing forth an action, pushing forth some type of excitement, pushing forth some type of vibration that is months in the making. And that's wonderful. And it can sound really, really hopeful. And for some people, there will be some hopefulness in the vibration between that square of Jupiter and Mars, that push for hopefulness. Now, Jupiter is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. There is some kind of lesson, permission, some type of like go ahead energetically happening. For some people, it's going to be a course of conversations with the doctor that happens like right before this. So somewhere in that like September 3rd timeframe of unexpected news that like leads to an action or a reaction. It leads to a push. Jupiter being that doctor, guru, teacher, pushing. This is the action that you take. This is the direction that you go. This is the thing I want you to do. Jupiter hitting that square to Mars. This is your green light. This is your go ahead. This is what I want you to do. Now, Jupiter and Mars are in cardinal signs. They're in instigative signs. They're things that we want to push forward. So in a lot of ways, we need the permission, so to speak. We need the direction, in other ways of saying it. And Jupiter hitting that square to Mars right before the Pisces eclipse tells me that there is going to be a push of action that also highlights the vibration of what's coming to light, what's coming to the forefront, what's going to be focused on as a part of the Pisces eclipse. Because again, Pisces is ruled by 2 signs, Jupiter and Neptune. Well, Neptune is in Mars' sign. and Jupiter is hitting that square to Mars. So the key things that you need to know in the first week of September is, what does Pisces rule for you? What does Cancer and Libra rule for you? Because the instigation of Cancer and Libra is also instigating parts of the transition, mutable sign, mutable eclipse, transition of the Pisces eclipse. Now, when I do the actual podcast episode for the eclipse itself, I will include that Jupiter square for each individual sign, just to be clear. Okay. Getting back into it. And on the very next day, right after we go through this energy of like pushing something forward, it's also like energetically, we are also telling the universe that we are done in some way. We are done pushing something forward. We are done reacting to something in some way, because real late into the evening time, Uranus is going to turn retrograde. So for me, it happens on September the 5th at 11:52 p.m. For some people, it is going to be September the 6th, depending on your time zone. For a lot more people, it is going to be on September the 5th, real late into the evening time. And in some ways, like, the excitement of how far we have come is starting to hit a pattern of like, we're not going to grow anymore. So that doesn't mean that we can't have new. It just means that it's not going to have forward motion in growth. It's like staying linear, like we're in a time frame of expansion. But even in this expansion of the current, we have the ways of the old bleeding into the new. So as you keep doing the linear things of change, of growth, of adjustments, saying it that way, as you keep going in this direction, it's giving more time for the old to flood into the new, because the new is not in a forward progression, it's in a linear pattern. We're bouncing around doing the same thing over and over again. And sometimes you need that, because again, you need to build a network. If you're doing something in a business, you want to build the network. If you're doing something in regards to like a later goal of growth and expansion, you have to build the reputation of what you're doing now. You need to hit up certain people to let them become aware of what the change is. Speaking of change, September 7th of this 2 days, or yeah, 2 days, and then I'm gonna back it up an hour. Okay. The full moon eclipse is going to perfect at 11:09 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at that 11:30 mark. Again, this full moon, p.m. a.m. Oh, I wrote the wrong hour. This eclipse is not going to be viewable for us here in the States. It is viewable for our people down under. So in that Australia, New Zealand, India, that area is going to be able to view this eclipse. It is not viewable for us here in the northern hemisphere the way it is for them down there. So just so everybody's aware, this is not going to be viewable for us here in the States, but my people down under, you got the picture. You get to see it. You're going to have the view. Okay. I did write the wrong time. So now again, I kind of put this into the beginning of the episode. This eclipse is happening where Saturn was a year ago, letting us know of something that we needed to start to heal and we needed to start to work on a year ago, making space for where we would later have gains. And we're just now activating the point of gains. And this is the activation of those gains. And for some people, this activation, it's time for the activation, in the sense of like this full moon is happening again where Saturn was a year ago. Since I still have this up on the next screen, I'm just going to show it again. This full moon eclipse is happening where Saturn was a year ago. So for some people, this is like, we have an idea. For some of you, you're going to have to go back through your journals. You're going to have to go through your your notes, your pictures and stuff like that from before to see what was going on for you. But there was something very specific that was being internally activated in that eclipse in 2024 that is directly impacting this eclipse in 2025. So be aware of that. Okay. After this eclipse is finalized, we're going to have a few days of no major transits per se. When we get to the 10th, we're going to hit a conjunction of the sun and the south node. And anytime a planet hits the nodes, there's something that can get activated. So in this case, we're talking about the sun. This is our ego, our consciousness, this level of awareness. The south node is the body of the dragon, but the body of the dragon that was disgraced, removed, outgrown, let go of. In some ways, we need to recognize something that we've outgrown, something that we've let go of. But again, because we have these bleeds of timelines from the past, we don't even realize that we need to let go of something until something finds its way of showing itself. Now, sometimes you know exactly what it is, and it's super easy. I'm like, yeah, I know my room in my childhood home still has the posters on the wall from like the 90s. The Backstreet Boys are still on the wall. I'm like, yeah, that's a collector's item. But there's a lot of people pay good money for the old stuff sometimes. But there's something about there's something about the old that once you have to go focus on it, once you go back to your childhood home, once you get back into something, you look at it something going, yeah, it's got to go. It's all got to go. And for a lot of people, there is the awareness and the decision of something that needs to get let go of somewhere between September 10th and 11th, because the sun will make a conjunction to the south node first. And then by the 11th, Mercury, the ruler of our logical brain, and the ruler where the next lunation, the next eclipse is going to be, is a part of this vibration. It is also making a conjunction to the south node. And the lightest way to talk about that vibration is this internalized energy, somewhere between the 10th and the 11th. Going again with, on the 10th, the sun hits the conjunction to the south node. On the 11th, Mercury is going to hit it. Now it's going to be a little bit later. Give that a little bit closer. Yeah, that's close enough. Then Mercury hits that conjunction to the south node. There's something in this vibration that speaks to the awareness of loss, the awareness of something that needs to be released, the awareness of something that needs to be outgrown. But there's like a consciousness of like something coming to light first before the decision is to release and purge it, just to be clear. And that's going off of the idea of just what the south node means in the release sense. For some people, this is going to be something that feels like a shock. Sometimes when we have a lot of conjunctions real quick to the south node, we can have a shock vibration, a shocking element, literal electrical shock sometimes with the south node, something that feels like the pattern of electricity. For other people, there's going to be something that literally impacts the body. Now I'm looking at it this way. The sun, heart chakra, there can be things tied to cardiac, things tied to our chest and our heart chakra that hits, that becomes active in the body. Mercury rules anything on your body in duality: 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs. Watch your step. Maybe not try to do like fast speed pitch if you're not used to doing it. Now, if this is your normal thing, then do your thing. But I'm saying, like, if you're not used to pitching, you're not used to throwing the football, you might throw your shoulder out. Be aware. The other thing that Mercury rules, though, is your intestinal health. Now, Jupiter has rulership over the liver. He has co-rulership. Venus has rulership over the actual stomach organ and your kidneys, but you have 2 kidneys. Anything in duality is also ruled by Mercury, so Mercury has co-rulership. The rest of your intestinal tract, Mercury is the more dominant of those rulers. So be aware of something being activated in the body. There's so many layers to saying that, because sometimes activated in the body is like, oh, my stomach doesn't feel well. It's like I got a butterfly effect going on. For other people, there can literally be something going on in your intestinal tract that needs to come to light in these few days. And it's like something in the energy is what finally activates what needs to be looked at in the body. And that's going to be like the shock factor that I'm talking about. Like, something's not right. My appendix doesn't feel right. That type of thing. It's not always the appendix, but you know what I mean. The awareness of the body these few days is also very, very important. Now, right after we go through this. We've got a couple other transits that are going to happen that are not as intense, but there is something here that's again speaks to the intestinal health. On the 12th, just bumping this by a day, the sun is going to go through a sextile from Jupiter. That's going to happen in the early morning hours, or roughly around 2 a.m. By the afternoon at 4:45 p.m., which we're closer to that at the 6:30 point, Jupiter will also hit a sextile to Mercury. Again, Jupiter is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. There can be things tied to the body that require medical awareness. Now, whenever this is going down, whenever Jupiter hits the sextiles to those, we also start to get a Moon-Uranus conjunction in the other mercurial sign. So be very aware around the 10th, 11th, 12th time frame, especially 12th and 13th, as to what Gemini also rules for you. And again, pay attention to what's going on in the body, because on the next day, we get our Mercury Cazimi. Now, this is actually going to go exact more at like the 6 a.m. time frame. So in the early morning hours, I got this at 6:30 p.m. So we're past the actual Mercury Cazimi. But anytime you have a planet come into a conjunction with the sun, it's like a rebirth. Well, Mercury, again, rules those areas of the body that I've just talked about. It rules our logical brain. It comes into the heart of the sun. For some people, this is a debut. For some people, this is a reveal. For some people, this is an arrival. For other people, this is an announcement. For some people, it will be an informational debut. And what happens over those few days is like we have certain things from the past that really start to test us, test our boundaries, test what's going on, test our frustrations, and we make the clear, concise decision to like let somebody go. And like on that Cazimi day, it's like, here is my room without all the Backstreet Boys posters, going on the most layman's term, like very non-aggressive vibration. It's not supposed to be aggressive, but hear me out. Like that can be one thing. We remove everything consciously, and then at the end, we're like taking pictures, or we're looking at this reshaped room that went from being like a teenage time capsules from 1996 to now. In regards to, I don't even think Backstreet Boys were big in 96. I think it was like a 99 thing. But anyways, to now, like, oh, look, this is like a guest room. Like it can have a different purpose. It can be an office. It can be a bonus room for grandkids when they're coming over. Like something gets debuted. For other people, if we do have things going on in the body, and if we are having things going on in the body, it's most likely going to be with an elder. But other people have surprised me before. There can be something going on in the body that it takes a few days to diagnose. And given that Mercury Cazimi is still loosely in a sextile to Jupiter, Jupiter being the doctor, the guru, the teacher, for some people, whatever gets debuted is because of Jupiter's involvement, of the guidance, of the diagnosis, because of the vibration of what Jupiter has represented in this. And again, Jupiter and Mercury are the primary rulers of this eclipse axis. So be expecting something in that Mercury Cazimi time frame to get revealed that can have more than just an informational standpoint. Can it be information? Yes. It's not going to be information for everybody. It can be filings, it can be truth, it can be documentation, it can have to do with schools, it can have to do with an automobile, because Mercury rules are automobiles too. It can have to do with a multitude of different things, but there needs to be a major awareness for a lot of people that there can be stuff that's going on in the body, and you can have a mix of both at the same time. You can have something going on with a car, or going car shopping, but it's like the entire time you're car shopping, your stomach is in knots. Like, oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this. How are we going to afford it? I don't know, but we got to make it work. We need a car. We need this to happen. We need what we need. And it's like your stomach is in knots for days. So you can have a mix of both simultaneously in this vibration, but expect something to come to light, expect something to get revealed roughly around that September 13th timeframe during the Mercury Cazimi. Now, after that, there's still something in the air whenever it comes to the Neptune Saturn vibration, because over this 24-hour period from the 13th to 14th to 15th, so 24 to 48 hours, we also get our hidden contra-ANTISCIA between Neptune and Saturn. But Neptune will be in the higher authority for this. Neptune has this way of like spreading, infecting, clouding. And there can be things, again, that impact the elders. And that's why I was saying before, like if we're having a health issue, it's most likely to be around elders in regards to Neptune. There can be things in regards to like treatments that need to impact the elders. There can be things that, again, that have to speak to a diagnosis that's going to impact the elders. But there can also be things in the big picture sense of like the collective in these few days and how it's impacting everybody. So we're just in that exactness of that contra-ANTISCIA roughly right here on the 14th. It happened a couple hours earlier, actually. Yeah. Where's it at? There it is. That 12:30 p.m. You know, what's funny is this contra-ANTISCIA that's happening, it's a secret transit, but it's also going to impact whatever actually is going to happen in the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in the springtime. Now I want to speak on the collective in regards to that. In the collective sense, something about that ANTISCIA vibration, because we've been so close to Saturn-Neptune conjunct, but you can slide a pin through it, you can slide a coin through it, like it's so close, but we're not completely touching. Okay, it's not completely there yet. It's not going to be completely there until February. That's when we get the full 0-degree conjunction between those two. So we have this lingering buildup vibration that impacts what we will be focusing on in 2026. And this is giving internally, at least, behind the scenes stuff in a lot of ways, an energy that speaks to plans for some, treatments for others, the effects in many ways of something that we want to get done in the future, but it is the future. We can't necessarily get to that quite yet. And because we can't get to that yet, we still need to work through some kinks that will take months. This speaks to that. And the only reason I'm bringing this up in the month ahead, I would have just put more focus on the weekly of this one, but I'm putting it in the month ahead only because how important Saturn is for the eclipses. 2, what's going to be happening in January in the debut month that I'm starting to warn about. And 3, that we have a full actual conjunction that needs to happen between those two. And anytime you have a conjunction at a 0-degree mark, it speaks to like something very new starting. And in the collective, I feel like we're going to start to see some kind of buildup or some ideas or some beliefs about something, especially financial beliefs, but also like religious beliefs. In some ways, medical beliefs too, which we've seen a lot of that. I feel like we've seen more of that than we have the money thing. That we believe something is going to work, but we're like having to work with resistance at first, or we're having, again, to work out kinks before we fully push something forward come spring of next year. Then we're going to see collective stuff of this as much as we are going to see like internalized stuff. So if you are mentally kind of spinning, turning in this regard, in this middle week of September, this middle week in between the two eclipses, that's another way to say it too, I wouldn't be surprised. There can be inspiration. It really kind of comes down to like the mundaneness of like what you're dealing with in your personal life. All right, let's get back into it. Now, this is an indirect transit. When we get to the 15th, we have a more direct one. Now we're going to be in this contra-ANTISCIA vibration all month. But now I want to get back to the actual like transits that we got going on. On the 15th, we're going to have a sextile between Venus and Mars. Now, Venus is in the sun sign. We are in eclipse season. Mars is in Venus's sign. So this feels like an extra layer of direction, of guidance, of desire being broadcast, being showcased, being brought to the forefront of something that needs to take action, but it's like supportive action. This is not a heavy transit. When we get into the 16th, we're going to have a little bit more about like solution orientation in regards to that supportive action. Because what we're going to have on the 16th is Venus is going to go through a trine with Chiron. And Chiron is the wounded healer. It's a very neutral energy. So a lot of times it speaks to like we're trying to find a solution. Venus will go through the trine with Chiron. Simultaneously, Mars will hit the opposition to Chiron. So this feels like the 15th, 16th vibration is where we have inspiration. We've had that CONTRA-ANTISCIA that speaks to the internalized energy of inspiration. But now we have the external transits that speak to like, I'm inspired to take this action. I'm inspired to take this action to fix something, to heal something, to overcome something. And there's a lot of mental energy here in regards to, we just got past that Mercury Cazimi. We have so much like leaning into that new vibration of Virgo season, but we also have a lot of passion in regards to like fire and air. Chiron is in a fire sign. It's also in Mars' sign. Venus is in the sun sign, and Mars is in Libra. I don't know why I went blank just now, but Mars is in Venus' sign too. So Venus, I feel like, has like the upper hand of this whole situation of like giving empowerment, cheerleader like energy of like, here's the push, but the push is like, we've got a solution. We've just got to take this action. We just got to try this thing. I'm telling you, it's the best thing for us. And again, Chiron is in Mars' sign, but Mars is in Venus' sign, and Venus is in the higher authority of this sextile between Venus and Mars. So I'm putting more emphasis on Venus being in this vibration. I would put a lot more on Chiron, but Chiron is retrograde, so it feels like old solutions coming around or old ideas coming back to the forefront to create solutions. Not so much like with Venus being in her full steam ahead momentum. And on this day, we get a Moon Jupiter conjunction. So we're feeling a lot more hopeful, a lot more boastful, a lot more confident in the transition, in the new that is beginning, in what we are trying to solidify. Okay. Now, on the 17th, you're going to bump this day, Mercury will hit its opposition to Saturn. Now, the interesting thing about these in degrees of Virgo going into Libra is we're getting both a hidden transit and an active transit simultaneously. We'll go through the Antiscia of Mercury to Neptune while it's in the opposition to Saturn. And it feels like in one way, we're getting real direct energy of like what's going on with the elder, real direct energy about the guidance with the doctor for some, because Saturn is back in Jupiter sign. So I'm going to go ahead and say doctor. What's going on with the elder? What's going on with the boss? Some kind of permission, some type of like responsibility in regards to Saturn. But then there's this extra thing that either they believe will happen if we take some kind of action, or there's some extra thing feeding into it that we're not seeing clearly, but we're inspired. For some, inspired can be a good thing. For other people, it's like we're deluded, we're a little delusional, because there's a Neptune part there. And this goes back into that surreal vibration. Certain things that are happening that feel very, very surreal. And this second eclipse feels more surreal than the Pisces eclipse. And it feels like there's a lot of action and activity that will follow it as to whatever has gone on throughout Virgo season and whatever has come to the forefront. Now, some people are going to have to do with some type of like contractual communication in regards to Mercury hitting the opposition to Saturn. Other people are going to have informational things. Some people are going to be things in regards to health. There's going to be logistics. There's some kind of planning, but it's like we get the first level of sign off on something and push it forward. And the sign off allows for announcements for something bigger to follow. And as we get closer to that Virgo eclipse, I feel like that's going to be the follow where we start to go more into announcement energy here. So Mercury hits that opposition to Saturn. As we get to the next day, Mercury is going to enter Libra. That's going to happen real early in the morning around 5:06 p.m. What's funny is like right after we go through that entry of opposition to Saturn, change signs, we'll go from hidden dynamic of Neptune to active dynamic of Neptune. Mercury will hit this opposition to Neptune right here. This is going to be really intense. And it's not going to be directly understandable in the intense. And again, there's levels of surreal in a lot of this. There's levels in inspiration and beliefs in a lot of this. But there can also be things in regards to health in a lot of this. So let's be fair about that. It really kind of comes down to the human effect of where you're landing in this energy. Okay. On the 19th, we got a couple things going on. Uranus is going to hit a trine to Mercury. That's going to happen really in those closer to that midnight area. So Uranus will hit a trine to Mercury. Venus will enter Virgo. You can see that here. And at the same time, Mercury is going to go through a trine with Pluto. So you can see we got a couple things going on right here. And again, Venus is arriving into Mercury's sign. Mercury and Venus in each other's sign speaks to mutual reception. So the arrival of Venus is one layer to like the mental understanding, the flurry of news, the flurry of communication, the flurry of information, the flurry of research in regards to what Mercury is doing in this trine between Pluto and Uranus. And Mercury right here, he's in his energy, he's getting the most active to an exact trine between Pluto and Uranus. We actually don't get an exact trine between these two this year. We'll get our first one next year. But Mercury is going to come in and hit this exact trine as close as possible. It hits the trine from Uranus first, the trine to Pluto second. And in that same time span, Venus, the ruler of Libra, where Mercury now is going to enter Virgo. And this feels like the outcome. This feels like an arrival. These few days feel like the arrival of something new, someone new. It feels like benefit in some way. It feels like results in some way. It feels like consequences for some. And it really kind of depends on like what set of decisions, what set of communication, what set of meetings have been made before this arrival. And that will speak to the level of intensity that we're dealing with. And we're literally winding down. We're less than 48 hours away from the Virgo eclipse. So all of these days are very tightly knit into one another. And it's not feeling a buildup in the sense of like a chaotic eclipse. It feels necessary. It feels determined. It feels, again, like there's a hopeful vibration. There's a challenge in it of how we're going to take something forward. Okay. Oh, the 19th is going to be interesting. On the 20th, I'm just going to bump this a day. Uranus is going to hit that square to Venus. Reminder again, Venus and Mercury are mutual reception. So whatever happened on the 19th is probably feeding into the 20th. Anytime Uranus is involved, though, we expect the unexpected. There can be results of something in regards to technology because of Uranus. There can be a lot of idea shifts and idea changes in regards to Uranus. But this feels like an unexpected benefit given the transit that was happening right before. And it also feels like we're leading more into a completion. Now, in the overnight hours going into the 21st, after the Uranus-Venus square, we're going to get the Sun-Saturn opposition. Now, that's going to go the most exact, like right after midnight. So I got it September 21st, 12:30 a.m. Here's Saturn, 28 degrees, 30 minutes. Here's the sun, 28:29. So we're astrologically, we're 1 minute before it happens. There is a showcasing of something with an authority figure, with an elder, with somebody who is in some level of responsibility. Some of us are going to feel the need to challenge an elder. Some people are going to be debuting something to an authority figure, to an elder, or showcasing something. Not only do we have the sun hitting the opposition to Saturn here, but we're also going to have that new moon eclipse. So the vibration and the tensions of whatever was going on the 19th, the 20th, they're leading into the 21st. They're leading into something coming into focus. And anytime we have a new moon, it's usually like a new beginning, a logical new beginning, a beneficial new beginning. Mercury is now in Venus's sign, so Mercury is now in Libra. So, like a fairness in regards to that. There's an aesthetic to it, there's an image to it, there's something extra in the layers. Whenever it comes to this vibration, some of us will feel like it's time to do something new. And our showcasing is not one person in particular, but it's like we are the authority figure showing people something new, interesting them into something new. I'm just keeping this going till we get to the actual eclipse. Oh, we're just past it. Okay. Oh, here's our new moon in Virgo. We're still on the 21st. Now, this actually goes exact roughly around that 1:20 p.m. So I'm a little off of it right here with that 3:30. But here's the new moon in Virgo hitting that opposition to Saturn. It's also in that secret transit to Neptune, which is super funny to me because it feels like there's so many layers to what's being completed to then what's going to showcase and debut. And for some people, this is a logical completion that you are done with a person. And because you are willing to say, I'm done with a person, a whole new vibration will go into focus afterwards. You're done with a person, you're done with a situation, you're done with something, but that completion is also very much a new beginning. For other people, you're going to be showcasing, you're more on that Saturnian side, showcasing something new, seeing something new unfold. And for some of us, it's going to be judgment. There will be a judgment there. Some of you will literally be in front of a judge. It'll literally have like a boss, a CEO, a judge. There will be some kind of authority figure that's a part of that new vibration. But that new vibration also feels like an ending because it is a 29-degree eclipse. What happened in the black moon in Virgo? What started to come to light? What started to happen below the surface that now needs to be looked at, that's now going to get announced, that's now going to get debuted? And for some people, there is exactly that. There's announcements in this vibration. There's something that's shaking it up and pushing something forward. And after we go through this actual eclipse, okay, there we go. After we go through this, we're going to have the moon change signs within a few hours. I'm going to bump it a full day. Mars is going to change signs and the sun. So we have something that speaks to the arrival, a new beginning, a new vibration. The sun and Mars are going to change signs within hours of each other. Mars is going to enter Scorpio at 2:55 a.m. Central Standard Time on September 22nd. The sun is going to enter Libra at 1:20 p.m. I got in the afternoon, and that's why I have it there, so that way I can showcase there is a shift, there is a transition, there is a movement. The sun is now in a cardinal sign. It's in an instigative sign. It's leveling up the transitional vibration. Why am I saying it's leveling it up? Because the sun is now in Venus's sign. Venus and Mercury are in mutual reception. So they're feeding off of each other. And as we commit to more of the change, we see the results, we see the expansion. But I'm not saying forward motion completely into new things. I'm saying like there's a growth potential of growing in a linear fashion. But as we grow linear, it leaves space for the old to still come back through. Now, for some people, there is amazement. For some people, there is awe. There's things like this. For other people, there will be things that speak to confusion. How did we get here? And that really kind of comes down to that Neptune energy and how it's been playing into it. Because once the sun goes into Libra, what does it do? It starts its opposition to Neptune. Now, this is going to be more exact on the 23rd, but there's still something that speaks to I'm stepping into something new and I'm not completely clear on how to do the new. And that's because that's the other reason I feel like we've got some things that speak to this transitional vibration is linear growth, not full forward momentum. I feel like if you try to do full forward momentum, you're going to hit more brick walls than you want to believe. I think we have to do linear growth to build the foundation of something for something more new to come into effect in 2026. So again, we're networking, we're spreading the word, we're telling people we started a new job, we're telling people that we've got a promotion, we're telling people that we're making this change in the business. It's growth in a linear fashion, not fully in a full forward momentum. Oh, and Mars is now in Scorpio. If we're struggling with our emotions, once Mars goes into Scorpio, Mars is going to make us do some work. And this is where he's going to be all throughout the rest of the month and all through October and even to the very little first parts of November. Mars is going to make us do some work. He's going to disrupt long-term emotions. And he's speaking to one extra layer as to why I don't think it's going to be full forward momentum and growth per se, but it's hitting a plateau that's 2 years in the making if we just focused on Mars, and that's a different conversation. When we get closer to this, I'll put more emphasis into it. Right now, I don't feel like that is the right time to talk about it. Okay. Arrival, these two planets both change signs. Now, again, on September 23rd, this is when we'll get the more exactness of the Sun and Neptune. Don't expect a lot of big activity on these days unless you're doing something more in that inspirational sense. I feel like a lot of people are going to be lost, confused, and clouded. I feel like a lot of more people are going to need something that kind of like clouds the senses or blinds the senses. Some people, if you do a breakup in that eclipse, like you're finally done with something, there's like the element of like, now I'm frozen because I don't know if I made the right decision. And you're going to really have a lot of overthinking in there too. And again, Mars in that Scorpio sign, it's going to bring up some deep seated emotions, emotional healing. We got some old stuff coming back around for different reasons, but he's going to make us really take some work and make some efforts. All right. Uranus is going to go through a trine with the sun on the 23rd. This can kind of break up some of the confusion element of Neptune. I will say that. Right after it goes through a trine with Uranus, there's also going to be the trine with Pluto. What's interesting about these trines is how late they happen. Oh, go back. Thought I was on hour. I'm not. One is actually going to technically happen on the 24th. The trine with Pluto technically happens on the 25th. So did I write the times wrong again? I did. Dusty, bad Dusty. Anyways, it's earlier in the day. Anyways, I don't know why I was so goofy. Anyways, the sun will go through the trine to Uranus. It's going to go through the trine with Pluto. You can see that right here. It's not as close as when Mercury was there, but whatever happened with the Mercury Uranus trine, Mercury Pluto trine on the 19th, this can be an extra layer, an extra effect going into the 24th. And then also on the 24th, we're going to get a full square between Mars and Pluto. And really, I've got more emphasis on Mars Pluto. And this Mars Pluto, it's our last major transit of September. We still have a good 6 days left of September. But now we're going to close and we're going to talk about Mars Pluto. Anytime you track a pattern between planets, start at the conjunction, a Mars Pluto conjunction. The last time that happened was Valentine's Day of 2024, that week, actually. We had a couple of conjunctions to Pluto that happened, Mars in particular. Later on, there was another Mars Pluto square that happened. It happened in June, right, of 2024. And then we had multiple Mars Pluto oppositions that happened between November of 2024 and April of 2025, we had an exact one, we had a retrograde one, and then we had another exact one. So I'm just giving loose dates right there. One in November, one in late December, January. It was like literally the first week of January as to like how we dealt with Mars opposite Pluto in the retrograde. And then the third and final one was April, late April of 2025. If you have taken notes, like you have your journals and you can go back, there's something about that vibration that is going to come back around. Now, I can say this in the big picture, collective sense. I can also say this in like the personal life sense, because I've been watching the Mars Pluto stuff for quite some time. As a Scorpio rising, they're both my chart rulers. So, yay. When Mars hits that square to Pluto, it's adding an extra layer of the past vibration coming to the forefront, bleeding into the forefront. And this is not a fun energy. This is a challenging energy. And there is going to be frustration. There is going to be challenges. There is going to be the awareness of power struggles. There is going to be the awareness of death for some. There is going to be the awareness of loss. There is going to be areas of tension, full on tension and the potential of fighting when Mars hits the square to Pluto. Now, these two will not have their next conjunction until the beginning of 2026. Oh, look, Dusty's back on her patterns again. And there is stuff from this month in September, and this is one of them why, that is going to lead into the vibration and to the effects and what we will be facing and what we will be dealing with in January. Now, some of us, because we haven't dealt with any hard Mars-Pluto things in a while, you've already forgotten. And I'm warning you, the past is going to come back. We have unfinished business. We're going to get tested. We need to face something. If you're not getting tested in the sense of having to go through something again, it's more along the lines of you become the third wheel of helping someone else go through something and them get through their stuff. And there's going to be something about like the lesson for you is how you see the patterns in others. Sometimes you're going to have a similar situation come back around, but it's with a different person. And again, it's a test to see, are you going to do this thing that you did before? Are you going to behave differently? Are you going to react differently? And I really feel like the Mars Pluto is going to be a test to see how far we've come. And this vibration being at the end of September, being the last thing, I feel like we will talk more about it once we get to that last week of September, and we'll be able to see more. And I feel like whatever the seeing more is has a bit of an audience, because when Mars hits that square to Pluto, the sun is also in a trine to Pluto. And where we previously had tests that probably did not have an extra person or an extra body or an audience, it did not have. Now we will. There's something different. Now, even if we go back to April, the sun was involved. Going back to that time frame, we had the Mars-Pluto opposition. It was right at the beginning of Taurus season. So like literally between April 21st, 20th, 21st. I feel like the 21st is closer. April 20th is the first day of Taurus season. But April 21st to like the 28th, that whole week span, the sun went through a square with Pluto and a square to Mars simultaneously while Mars and Pluto were in their opposition. So something very specific to late April. We had an outside source then, but that outside source gave judgment, it gave guidance, it gave action, it gave direction. This feels different because it feels like whatever's coming back up from the past, it's not the same energy as before that created the wedge. It's somebody that needs to understand the past and understand the wedge and understand the darkness and understand why we left and understand the challenges. And it's going to give, again, chances to heal something. But I feel like we have to have the trigger to whatever deep-seated emotions we need to heal, we need the trigger. And Mars-Pluto feels like a trigger. And it doesn't necessarily feel like it's tied to the same parts of the rest of the year per se, or the rest of the month. I'm sorry. It feels wholly and completely different, but it also feels like we need all of the linear transitions to put us in that place of test, to put us in that place of different focus, of different reactions, of something different, of challenge. So I feel like there is something very specific that comes through that, like a test right in that vibration. It can be good for some, for some. It can be hard for others. Negative, violent, potentially triggering a whole different set of vibration that will take us into October. It feels like the bigger transit of what takes us into October, November than it does the rest of September. It does feel like a very clear, defined, this is different, while also all of that vibration of September led to us being able to see the different. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Hit me up with questions, hit me up with concerns. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.